there's some things we can take care of ourselves. And basically that's why I look at it as when you lose. Are you sleeping? Are you going to bed early or staying up late? Are you eating properly? Are you doing your drills? Are you conditioning? All the things you can control internally. If you're not taking care of that and you are outscored, you probably lost that match.
Yeah.
If you feel you are preparing yourself properly, well rested, you're conditioned, you're mentally in the right place, and you have less points, that guy beat you. And that's why I kind of explained to him that the key thing about losing is you can take care of that instantly.
Run it, baby. Ricky Cheese, baby!
I appreciate you being on tonight, Demetri. You are a very busy guy, as we were just discussing. So thank you for coming on the Grinding for Greatness
Thank
show.
you.
Absolutely. Just real quick, those that don't know Demetri, he is one of the finer guys in the state of Florida, I believe from Pennsylvania, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. He does a lot of clinics, a lot of camps. All of them are free. He gives back more than anybody that I know. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But real quick, just so you know what kind of guy this is as far as wrestling is concerned, Demetri, correct me if I'm wrong here. I did my research, but you never know how the internet is. But I believe you graduated from Delaware Valley in Pennsylvania in 1993.
Yep.
You were a 4-time MAC champion. You won it in 90, 91, 92, and 93 at 134, which was the old weight class back in college.
Yes.
So, of course, that means you were a 4-time NCAA qualifier. It said you were a 2-year captain of the team. And what really stuck out and was very impressive to me, your junior year, which was the 91-92 season, won 26 out of 28 matches with an .822 winning percentage, 74-16 overall career NCAA record, which incredible. Congratulations on all your great accomplishments. Absolutely. So you're from Pennsylvania. How old were you when you started, and what got you into the sport?
Yeah. So, well, thank you for all the information. We'll go over all the numbers later. There's some interesting ones there. I started when I was about 6 years old.
Okay.
I grew up in a small town called Glenmore. I was actually born outside of Philly. We moved to the country called Glenmore. I don't know, 700 people. And I think my parents were very much the same way I'm with my kids. We had to do something. It wasn't just school. We were going to be some kind of activities. I played baseball and a lot of sports. But I remember them asking, what is it, a sport I want to get into? And it was gymnastics, actually. And back then in gymnastics, there wasn't anything for boys gymnastics. Maybe some mat, maybe some tumbling. And my dad said, hey, why don't we try wrestling? Okay. So we went out and wrestled. He wrestled in high school, and he actually went on to Wisconsin. He was in Wisconsin for about a year and tried to wrestle there. So it was already in the family. I think my uncle was actually a state champion.
Wow.
And so it was already in the family, went out and tried wrestling. And about 2 weeks later, I think I went into what we called AAU's districts.
Okay.
And I took second, and I was extremely upset, my mom tells me, because I wanted to win gold. I wanted the gold. So I started when I was 6. We had a program in that area in the it was called Lionville Youth Association, LYA. And back in I'm sure it's still the same way. It seemed like every school district had a youth program. And that was a youth program that fed into like Downingtown High School, Downingtown Junior High, Lionville Junior High, and some of the other schools locally. So it started off, it was a big youth program. I mean, I have a picture from the days, and there had to be, I don't know, in a little area, about at least 80, 90 kids there.
Wow. That's a big program. So, what weight did you wrestle in high school?
So our high school was 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Okay.
You could travel from the junior high to the high school and wrestle. So I wrestled 112, 10th and 11th, and then 131. I think it was 131 my senior year.
Okay.
Did some major cutting, as you know. That's what our the Pennsylvania boys do, right? So,
yeah, I think everybody
all that
does
Northeast.
these days.
Yeah, some crazy weight cuts there, but I was pretty grumpy back then for sure.
Did you have a pretty successful high school career? I mean, I know high school wrestling in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania is absolutely brutal. It is a grind.
Yep.
To make that podium I mean,
Yeah.
not
The
it's tough.
yeah, the my youth program I was extremely successful at junior high. And that's one of the things that I kind of missed down here is our junior high program. We had a JV and varsity team. It was our junior high competition was just like high schools, junior JV, varsity. I think I lost one match in junior high. Went to high school and I ran into some good hammers.
Yeah.
I lost some and I got beat by some also. The one thing that I'll always be, always remember is I never did, even if I was ranked in the state, I still never made it to state, which is, a pretty down time.
Yeah.
And I'll keep that always in mind.
Yeah.
And everything I do these days at work, I'll keep that in mind because I work extremely hard to get where I am, and then and to not accomplish that was, kind of sucks.
Yeah, I
So
mean, still thinking about it into your adult years, and I get it, man. I
yeah,
completely get it. You work your butt off to meet some goals, and when you don't meet them, especially wrestlers, we take it to heart like nobody I've ever
yeah,
seen. So I get it, and I've been there myself. What do you have to do to qualify for the Pennsylvania High School State Tournament?
yep. So in our we had what we have called sectionals.
That's
So we
what
were
they have in New
qualifying
York.
sectionals. There's probably like 8 to 10 schools in sectionals, and then from sectionals, the top three go to districts.
hmm
And qualify from districts into regionals, and it's the top three from regionals to state.
Okay.
So sectionals, districts, and regionals, then states.
Now, was it
Yeah.
just one classification, one state champ per weight class?
We had 2A and 3A,
Okay.
or two. So those were our two divisions. The size of the school is the only thing that was different, but the hammers were everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it didn't matter if they were 2A or 3A. They were just tough.
Yeah. I
So
think
those are two.
I think it's that way here too. You always used to hear people say, "Oh, 3A is the toughest and 1A is the easiest." It's not
I
like
don't
that.
know.
Not like that no
Looking at
more,
some of the teams put together last year. Oof,
dude.
yeah,
We listen. You always hear how Pennsylvania is the best, and they are. There's no doubt. Pennsylvania, they prove it every year. The numbers don't lie. They have the most Fargo guys on the podium and most Fargo champs. They're different. I don't know what the hell's going on
it's
in Pennsylvania.
it's
They're
I
different.
think it's a lot of people say this. It's a depth thing.
Yeah.
There are just so many tough wrestlers in all the weights. But I'll look at California. I'll look at New Jersey.
Yeah.
A lot of the states. I'm like they're tough all over.
Of course.
Florida, we can compete with anyone. I think there's just the numbers.
Yeah.
There's just a number thing there.
But it can't be just about the depth for Pennsylvania because they're so dominant. It's
Well,
got to be a little bit something else.
I think where I grew up, and again, it was maybe 45 minutes west of Philly. Every weekend, you can go 2 hour drive anywhere and run into a tough tournament.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same tournament over and over. I could be in Lehigh Valley area. I could be heading towards Hershey area or going towards Pittsburgh. I mean, every couple hours drive, you were in a tournament somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a huge difference when you're running into competition throughout the state with an easy drive.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I grew up in upstate New York. I started when I was 8 years old in Orange County, New York, little
mhm.
town called Monroe, New York. It's about 15, 20 minutes from West Point Military Academy,
Yep.
Army, Bear Mountain, beautiful area. And I remember as a little 8, 9, 10 year old, my dad would drive me anywhere, wherever the
Mhm.
toughest tournament was at, that's where we're going.
Yep.
And most of the time we were going to Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And I remember I used to hate going to Pennsylvania, man, because I would always I would always come back from Pennsylvania crying about something, man. I would always get my butt kicked. And I'm
Yeah.
like, Dad, can we go somewhere else? He's like, no, we're going to keep going to Pennsylvania and you're going to
Yeah.
get better. And that's exactly what happened. So I thank him for that. Now, did your dad coach you or he was just kind of a dad, kind of being a parent
Yeah.
rooting for you?
No, my dad was my coach my entire life. It didn't matter what sport I was
Oh,
in.
wow.
So if it was, I played baseball up to junior high and wrestled. and then I stopped playing baseball, and then but my dad was always coaching wrestling, and I would actually, I maybe went to college 2.5 to 3 hours away. I went to practice, and my dad could be walking into the practice room, and all the kids loved seeing him there. They were like, "Oh, Coach Kangas, come here!" And it's everywhere. My dad was such an influence on so many kids growing up in wrestling, and I still talk to people today that I grew up with about how much my dad did for him, and I think a lot of that rubbed off on me, almost all of it. So
Yeah,
yeah, he
I'd
coached
say
me.
so.
He coached all the way through the youth program in Lionville. He was one of the assistants there. There was a coach there called Coach Kozer. Glenn Kozer was one of the great wrestlers that came out of our area, wrestled at Penn State. He might have been a national champion in freestyle. I mean, that was a wrestling family.
Yeah.
And then he stepped down a little bit. My dad took over the main program for Lionville, or the LYA program.
Okay.
So, and he showed up everywhere.
Yeah, I bet.
Somehow, he made it to every match, every practice. It didn't matter what his work hours were.
Yeah.
He was always there. Yep.
Made it a point to be there, man.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so when you graduated, now what year did you graduate high school?
93.
Okay, 93. And
And I lied. That was college. 89. Sorry.
I was going to say, how'd you graduate
Yeah.
college in 93? Okay, so 89.
Yeah.
I only came out 3 years before you. I graduated in 86.
Yeah.
Okay, so you come out in 89. What made you decide to go to Delaware Valley? Was it just because it was 3 hours away from home, or what was going on
Yeah.
there?
You know, I think the times were a lot different back then for us. We're like, what colleges are we going to? We got pamphlets in the hand. There's no internet. It was like pamphlets
Right.
and word of mouth, and you hear about something. There are a couple colleges I was looking at were like Lycoming, which is another hammer school in our and MACs. East Stroudsburg, I got recruitment letters from them. I was looking at Millersville, Kutztown, and back then there was also Villanova was starting up. I think I was 80. Before I graduated, they started a Villanova program, part of the DuPont project with Foxcatchers. So I was looking, and then our school was called Westchester. So all these programs are growing pretty quick. I wasn't sure about, but we took the tour of Del Val, and it's a small college, and this is what I needed, maybe 1,800 students.
Okay.
How much I would love Penn State. There's no way I knew with my academics, not so much of the grades, but I knew the type of help I needed in classes. I couldn't go to large classes.
Okay.
Del Val with a private school, smaller classes, got on campus, and it's funny, I was driving around the campus, and one of the kids I wrestled in high school, he was from Cannon McMillan. My parents are driving me, I'm looking out the window, check out the campus, and we meet eye to eye, and we wrestled twice in high school.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, okay, small world here. So we ended up being teammates.
Nice.
But yeah, I went to that campus. Bob Marshall, the coach there, heck of a record. I mean, something like over 400 plus wins, some amazing amount of MAC championships, dual meets. So he was an amazing coach, and they sucked me in, and I went to Del Val. But I did not go to Del Val to wrestle. I was thinking of keeping wrestling in the back of my mind. Am I going to wrestle? But I'll be honest, my mindset back then, I had 4 years to graduate college and get a good job.
Okay.
I knew I had to. There's no 5-year program. 4 years, get my good grades, graduate, get a job, and also at the time I did a lot of bicycling. I did a lot of road racing and velodrome racing. I don't know if you know the track races with no brakes.
I have a good friend.
Lehigh Valley has a velodrome.
I wrestled with him.
And I was
big into that.
Yeah, I did. So I did a lot of that. I trained with a couple of pros. I trained at and raced at the velodrome in the summer. And so that wasn't sure if I was going to wrestle until coach got a hold of me. Yeah, we had some captain practices. I'm out there wrestling with this, the upperclassmen, holding my own quite well. And he goes, he saw me playing tennis. I was playing intramural tennis. I play all kinds of sports, by the way. And he's like, "Hey, Kangas, what weight do you think you're going to wrestle?" And I'm like, "Coach, I don't think I'm going to wrestle. I got to get good grades. That's what I'm thinking about." And he never cursed. None of my coaches ever cursed. And he's like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I mean, he didn't curse. And he'll say that all the time to me. I'm like, "Coach, I don't know. I got to get good grades." Well, they got me out to more practices. And if you get me on the mat, it doesn't matter if it's a wrestling mat or another thing, I'm going to compete.
Yeah.
And once I'm in there, I'm competing. Practice is practice. I'm out there running. I'm out there doing all my other activities to stay conditioned. So once I'm on it, it's 100%. But again, because of the type of school, my grades were able to stay up. Small classes. I could go to I never miss a class unless we were at a wrestling match.
Right.
And I can sit there. I can ask as many questions I want until I learn the subject. And that was a huge thing for me. So
that's awesome. So you go to Del Val, not even planning on wrestling. You wind up winning 4 MAC titles.
yeah,
Man, pretty
it's
pretty impressive.
so yeah. We went to our first off-season tournament. Well, it's kind of funny because I'm from the what they'll call the southeast part of Pennsylvania, the Weeks section back then, I would say.
Okay.
And some of the kids would go like, "Hey, we're going to go up to Lock Haven for it was some kind of tournament in the summer. You want to go?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll go." They have no idea who I am. It's my freshman year, so I went up there, and they're teasing me from being from the southeast and Pennsylvania, and I'm like, "All right, I'll go." And we went up there. I don't know. I wrestled some matches. I won. I was like, they're like, "Hey, did you wrestle?" I'm like, "Yep." And they're like, "You wrestled so and so, right?" I'm like, "I think so." And you won, and they're totally surprised that I won the match. I'm like, "Yeah." And I think from that point on, these couple of those kids from the Lock Haven area, they were like, "All right, maybe he's a little different, right?" So so we go and we start practicing. We do a preseason tournament. First one we go to is Binghamton. We drive up to New York. We do it every year, and it snows every year going to Binghamton. I wrestled some returning guys, really good guys, made it to the finals, wrestled my teammate, and we kind of, had some fun in the finals. Now he was ahead of me, so my freshman year, I only had 8 matches my freshman year. They took me to some tournaments, to national duels. I went to some big tournaments, and I had 8 matches. The gentleman in front of me is All-American, and just couldn't get past him. And then I think it was a week before MAC qualifiers or national qualifiers, I get a call from coach. He's like, "Hey, Kangas, can you make 134? And I'm like, and I was at home that weekend. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll make it." Hung up the phone, threw on the sweats, and I'm out there running the country roads. Luckily, my weight wasn't too bad. But yeah, so I just started running. The gentleman that was at my weight everybody moved up a weight class. I snuck in there as a no name. Next thing you know, I'm walking out with a 12-0 record for the season, win all my matches. And it was from that point on, I think a lot of people knew who I was.
Yeah.
So, and and it was a Division III conference, and I don't think a lot of people understand how tough some of the Division III kids are. And just in our MACs, I had a state champion, a state runner-up, a third placer from states. So you have that kind of talent from Pennsylvania State, a state champion, a runner-up in a Division III tournament. There's some hammers there, and there's some really tough kids. So when I talk to kids about going to school, I'm like, "Man, just go and wrestle."
Right.
It doesn't always have to be D1. If you're just go and wrestle,
So
there's going to be good.
So glad you just said that, because I say it all the time. I've said it on previous shows.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care whether you're club level, college, JUCO,
Yeah.
1, 2, or 3. If you're wrestling in college, you're a stud. Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
Period.
And our career is short, so go and enjoy it.
I've seen NAIA guys that I know for
Mm-hmm.
a fact can compete Division I. Look, most of the team at Life University in Georgia are former D1 guys.
Yeah.
One is from here, Vic Balmaceda's son, Brethren,
Oh, yeah.
won 2 national titles back to back. And not only that, didn't give up a takedown in 2 national 8 national
That
matches.
is crazy.
Won it, didn't give up. it's mind boggling. Like, I don't
Yeah.
comprehend that. Like, how did, especially in today's
Yep.
day and age, man.
Yeah. And I think what's great about, like, I'll look at D2, D3, the JUCOs and all. You were out there because you love the sport.
Yep.
You still practice hard. You might not have the best of facilities. You might not be um, under some crazy program, but you're going to go out there and there's people that are out there training themselves. I mean, there's a leader on every team.
Mm-hmm.
For when I was at Del Val, I was up and running. I was always doing extra, and all I did was suck in other kids. Like, hey, can I go run with you? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I got a 4 mile loop and I got an 8 mile loop, and after that, we're going to do sprints. And I think it doesn't matter what program you're in or what division, you're going to go work hard at it. You love the sport. You want to compete. You get yourself in the right mindset and right conditioning for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, once you left college, I read somewhere that you had something to do with Foxcatcher. You trained.
Yeah.
What happened with that? What was
So
going on there?
through later in my junior high years in high school, we were going to Foxcatcher. We would go to Foxcatcher and train. So we were able to go in there to the DuPont practice facility. We got to see some of the Olympians go at it. We had some, every now and then he would come and work with us and train us or hold our practices. Amazing facility, crazy story for sure, right? But yeah, we were able to go in there and work with some of the coaches, with some of the wrestlers, and you really do get an eye opening of how crazy these Olympians are. Doesn't matter how good you think you are in high school or college. There's like a leap to like Olympian craziness.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really craziness. It's just intensity.
Exactly.
And when you see that, that kind of grows on you though. You see how they practice, you see how they drill. And it's really, really cool to see. And you also realize how good, or how maybe not as good you think you are. When you roll around with those guys, you're like, well, yeah,
Humbling
they're good.
experience, right?
Yeah, very.
Who were the big names that were there the time you were there that we may know?
I got to say the Schultz were there.
Okay.
I don't know. I was trying to think about that. I should probably go back and look at some of the times. I don't know if Jackson. I don't know who else was all there. I just know I remember the Schultz being there.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the big thing back then. That's what really started it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I thought we also had some visitations from the Marine wrestling wrestlers would come and visit or hold a clinic there. For some reason, I remember that. I know we had that in high school. My coach in high school, Alry Johnson, was a legend of his own, and but I knew we would have like the Marines come in and hold practices for us. And for some reason, I thought might have been some there also. But we got a chance to roll around with a lot of good quality wrestlers when we went to Foxcatchers.
Did you ever was DuPont ever in the room there? Was he?
Yes, yeah. So
you got to give us a story.
And I'll tell. It's he's there quite a bit, and the movie really does kind of give you that feeling. It's kind of creepiness, right?
Spooky guy.
And I remember standing. My dad's here in the center. I was off to his right, and he's probably standing in the center for a reason. And DuPont off to his left, right? He's probably more aware of more stuff than I was back then. And yep, I was just like my dad was standing between us, and you could just, I can still picture him. And then I look at the movie, I'm like, yeah, that's the movie. Nailed it pretty good. Yeah.
When you were watching that movie when it first came out, when you watched it for the first time, did it like give you chills? Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, it's it was cool. Like, we're always kind of proud to be part of like the Foxcatcher program. I think I always remember it was just growing, and he was doing so much where like I said, Villanova was starting a program.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back and then you see some of those pictures of like, because you could drive sometimes a little bit past the wrestling facility and you see everything, and it was, yeah, it's kind of cool to see it. Like I was there, but it was kind of, like I said, it gives you kind of chills, like knowing what happened. And then you hear about the other stories that go on. You didn't there's how he might have thought people were listening to him or
Yeah.
some of the other things here. I wouldn't know anything about that back then, but it kind of makes you kind of think back, go, okay, what was really going on here?
Yeah, definitely appears. I mean, obviously, I don't know, but it definitely appears that the guy definitely wasn't too mentally stable. He
Yeah.
had some demons
Hmm.
going on in his head. But yeah, that was just a whole horrible story of what happened. But
Yeah.
wow. I want to get into a little bit of Will of a Warrior. So, Will
Hmm.
of a Warrior is your thing you got going on. You got you do make t-shirts and apparel and stuff like that, but that's not what Will of a Warrior is.
Right.
Tell everybody who's listening what Will of a Warrior really is. It's more of like a mission. So explain that
Yeah.
to everybody.
Yep. Yep. If you and it's actually probably posted on the website. I post a story out how much my dad, again, it was a part of so many kids' lives. He was always helping. Again, if it wasn't coaching in another sport, it was always wrestling. He was always giving back, and there was a time when he was passing that he was like, my nickname is Meech. Everyone calls me Meech. I don't know. My brother gave me the name, and he's like Meech. He goes, "There's yeah, I know." He's like Meech. There's always one more person to help, and that'll stick with me forever. And
Wow.
that's the way I'm looking at everything. So to me, the will of the warrior is like, how am I going to go and help others? It's really my goal is to have a foundation, and it'll be around education and fitness because I feel those are two big pillars.
Yeah.
And I try to focus a lot on education because I have my own disabilities of learning, and if I can be successful in my career and everything I do, I know I can help others be that way. So um, that you just have to learn the proper way. What makes me learn? What makes me tick? How do I accomplish what I do is different than if someone else. So the foundation, I would love to be able to hold a program where it's like tutoring for kids. Come on in, we get some education. But I also want the fitness side. The wrestling would be a great fitness side, but it doesn't have to be. So the idea of Will the Warrior is that foundation. Kangas wrestling out of the bottom, but it could be anything underneath it. It could be Joe's karate.
Yeah.
I just want to build that foundation that really focuses on the education side, but I want it to be complemented with the fitness and health side.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be, something we can pull kids in and help them out and give them, free tutoring and free whatever wrestling. I
Yeah.
would love to be able to do that, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely incredible. Um, I know so many people in this sport. I've met literally thousands of people, some great, some not so great. And I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because we're on a show, but you are probably the most selfless person in this sport that I've ever met. So I want to thank you personally for everything you do. A lot of people don't know this because you're a humble guy and you'll never say it, but I'll say it because I do want people to know it because it speaks volumes about you and what you are about. But any time that I've ever done any kind of fundraiser, whether it was the
Hmm.
backpacks for the kids going back to school that couldn't afford it,
Hmm.
the toy drive for
Right.
the holidays, the food drive for Thanksgiving and Christmas, you have always been the first person to step up and help out. So
Yeah.
thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Anytime. I would
Absolutely.
love to do more. Yeah.
I know you would. I know you would. And that's what makes it so awesome. Now, Will of a Warrior, you want it to
Hmm.
become a foundation. It's kind of getting there. I mean, you've already established a little scholarship fund. Talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit, real quick.
So yeah, the scholarship thing, I do all the little clinics and shirts, and they're free, right? If there's donations, they're donations, but really the scholarships I'm focused on. I'm trying to increase it again this year as I did last. Um, Focusing on the education side, and it's not all about GPA. A lot of the forum talks about, yep, I want to know how well you did in school, your GPA, but I want to also know what you're doing for the community. So I really look at some of the kids and how much you're doing for community. We have to volunteer a lot of times anyway for bright futures.
Right.
So if you're looking towards bright futures, you probably have some really good volunteer time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the main things. I want to really look at how the kids are, how they're performing in school. You don't need to have a crazy GPA, but a good grades. You're competing well in the sport, wrestling, and you're still making time to go back and help others. And I look at those three things quite a bit. Most of it comes out of my pocket. I do pick up a lot of, because I do shirts, I might do shirts for high schools. So if I make a couple bucks on doing the whole program for a high school, then it all goes back to that scholarship.
Yeah.
So, and I have gotten some very generous donations that has helped. So, and again, I don't go, I put it out there. I have these little flyers. I might put it out there. I don't ask. I'm doing the clinics for one reason, and that's because I don't think kids should miss a good opportunity to learn something new because it costs, $50 or $100. I mean, I want them to come. If they will learn one or two things from me, I did my job.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the responses from my clinics. The very first one I did, I'll say like Gianni and Marco.
Yeah.
They did a huge help. I met them once. Yep, I did I met him once at a local high school practice, and Marco was like, "You need to hold a camp." So he hooked me up with Scorpions. I go and help out there at Scorpions every now and then. Not as much last year because of my injury, but I'll go and help out. But my first one was there, and I'm like, I can do more of these. And now I try to have at least one per month in the summer. I think this year I did about 6 of them this summer. So,
any ages?
Any ages. The only thing I tried to do is make sure that we have some experience because it's hard for me to focus on, if I have a room of 30 kids and the beginner and then there's advanced, it's hard for me to focus that way. So I try to make sure they have some of the skill sets. And I know I'm doing something right because, I've gotten emails from parents about their kids saying how much they've learned or how much they like the clinic. And I always said, it's nice to hear things, or you might get a text, but when you start receiving emails from families, I know I'm doing something right. Absolutely. And I really do try to make it different. I'll give you an idea. I have one from the Puerto Verde Vidra, camp.
Oh, Ponte Vedra.
I don't know if you can see it.
North Florida, right?
We just were out and up towards. I get away with it because I take my wife on a little holiday up in St. Augustine.
I love it.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
And I get to hold a clinic. So I really do try. So here's like a little booklet I try to hand out. And all my sessions, I'm trying to think if I have it here. There's always an agenda sheet. This is my agenda of what we're going over. And I try to make it a series. And then inside there, on this one here, I have like my Coach Kangas mental notes. I posted a couple times. I have goal sheets. So I try to go and I talk to the parents, explain to them who I am. Here's the agenda. I'm going to try to post some of the stuff on my website later, but I really want to make that connection. I don't want to just go and show technique. I'll always go and I'll have a discussion about leadership, perception. Mm-hmm. Perception's been a big one. And one of my favorite ones is talking about the difference between losing and being beat and how you can understand the difference. If I lose, it's because I didn't prepare. I didn't eat right, whatever. My diet, I didn't train. When I get beat, that guy was better than me. I wrestled my best.
Yeah.
And how you can learn from both experiences. So I really like talking about that.
How do you teach
with the kids?
Or how do you get it through a kid's head to know the difference whether they lost or got beat?
I think when I'm explaining it, there's some things we can take care of ourselves. And basically that's why I look at it as when you lose. Are you sleeping? Are you going to bed early or staying up late? Are you eating properly? Are you doing your drills? Are you conditioned? All the things you can control internally. If you're not taking care of that and you are outscored, you probably lost that match.
Yeah. If
you feel you are preparing yourself properly, well rested, you're conditioned, you're mentally in the right place, and you have less points, that guy beat you. Mm-hmm. And that's what I kind of explained to him, that the key thing about losing is you can take care of that instantly. Like right now I can stop and I go, I'm going to start getting my rest. I'm going to start, looking at my goals, and you can take care of that losing real quick. And I stress that is something we can control. When you get beat by someone, those are the things I always say. That's what you want to hunt down. Look at what they did to beat you, and that's what you need to attack. And that's what you're going to, stay the hunter. So we go through some, before technique, I go through some of these discussions with them, and I think they get the message pretty clear.
Yeah. As far as the, obviously you were a big weight cutter. I was a big weight cutter. My kids were big weight cutters. I wasn't a fan of it, but they were. I mean, everybody says, well, it's part of the sport. It doesn't necessarily have to be. And,
Right.
If I don't even want to call it weight cutting, I would say if you're dropping some weight to get to a different weight class, there are proper ways to do it with proper
Yes.
nutrition over time where it's not detrimental to your health. It won't make you weaker, and it can be a good thing. It's not always going to be a bad thing. Being into the nutrition as you are and as knowledgeable as you are, I want some parents out there to hear the proper ways, or the ways that you feel kids can drop weight. Now, I'm not saying kids should drop weight.
Right.
I don't think kids should cut weight. Get stronger, get bigger, and wrestle and win. Kids do it all the time. But if a kid out there wants to drop some weight because they feel that they may be more competitive in a lighter weight class, what are the proper ways to do it? How would you guide that kid to do it?
Yeah. So one thing I always try to tell or ask the kids, I said, do you know your floating weight? And a lot of times the younger wrestlers do not understand floating weight. And I'm like, okay, so weigh yourself before bed, and what do you wake up at? What do you from morning to lunchtime? What is your weight change from lunchtime to practice? And understand those increments, because once you understand what your body is doing, then I think you can go, okay, you're not panicked. You're like, okay, I dropped 2 pounds overnight easy, so I know if I'm cutting weight, I have an idea of how much I could, maybe eat before I go to bed. Getting that, understand what does my body do, and everybody's different. And I think that's a huge thing for kids to understand, is that everybody's different. Kids will try to drop weight, and let's face it, we'll lose weight 1 week real quick. Man, I'm dropping all this weight, and all of a sudden it stops.
Plateau.
Your body stops. Your body's metabolism slowing down. It says, I'm done. And then you have to break it. You basically have to break that cycle, and you start losing weight again. But I think one of the things, I'll be honest, what I did wrong is I really did not drink a lot. I cut so much. I was cutting out liquids constantly. And I think that was I think that hurt me a lot during the end of the year. And maybe I'll look back and maybe say, maybe I didn't do as well as I wanted to at the postseason because of the way I was cutting throughout the entire year. Now many years later, but I think the hydration is a huge factor. The hydrating and eating the proper amount of balanced foods. You can still eat carbs. You can still eat your proteins, and by eating the right amount, they're not going to cause too much problems. I like the fish. I like the chicken. You got to stay away from processed foods. Processed foods are going to kill you.
Yeah.
So even if you're not wrestling,
I was just going to say,
we got to say,
no matter what you're doing, exactly.
Yeah. But I think that's an important thing: is how am I losing weight? What do I float? And even if I'm trying to reasonably drink throughout the day or after practice, and understand how your body's naturally doing before you start trying to reduce some of the liquids or some of your normal foods.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing. Understand your body first. From there, the cutting out and reducing water as you get closer and closer weigh-ins happens. You don't have to do it on a Monday for a Saturday, though. Get the good practices in. I think that's a key thing. You want to stay hydrated because we're really doing the practices, and your workouts have to be good, right? So take that slow ramp down. So cutting weight is one thing. What I really would stress is learn not to fluctuate your weight. Just because you weigh on a Saturday, don't go up 10 pounds.
Right.
there's no reason you should come in on Monday after wrestling Saturday with 10 pounds heavier. I think that's where we get ourselves in trouble a lot is these days is like, hey, I'm 8 pounds over, I'm 10 pounds over. And I don't know how you can do that anyway, but you should be always within striking distance, I think. You know, you maybe put on 3 pounds. If you're putting on 8 pounds, I don't think you're doing much over the weekend, but eating.
Right.
So,
Well, if you're coming
so
in
if
8
I'm
to
gonna,
10 pounds over, you probably should be wrestling in the higher weight class. That means you're cutting
right,
weight. You're cutting too much,
right.
probably.
I mean, if you're eating and drinking and you go out for those extra runs, go run, go do something. You got to do something after you eat too.
Yeah.
So, push-ups and sit-ups before bed, easy,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Now, I want to go back to Will of a Warrior real quick because I wanted to ask you something earlier and we kind of got off into another subject. The scholarship, it was a $500 scholarship. Now, you've already done one, right?
I did the last 2 years.
Oh, the last
So
2
the
years.
first year, the first year I did a $500 for girls wrestling only.
Okay.
Last year I posted I would do 500 for boys and girls, and I actually added one last year. I did additional 250 for each one, so I had a 500 and a 250 for boys, and 500 and 250 for girls.
Nice.
So,
Now, to select the winner, a lot of scholarship funds will require like writing an essay or something like that.
right,
How do you win the Will of a Warrior scholarship?
right. I really, like I was saying earlier, I look at the grades. I look at how well you're competing and all the activities you're doing and all the community services. And I do get in touch when I go through the sheets. I do get in touch with their coaches and or whoever they put on there, and I talk to the coaches or email them back and forth and try to understand the type of person that that is being that's filling out the sheets for the scholarship.
Yeah.
So I really try to look at that, and I'm not getting bombarded by 100 of them, which is nice. But I get a few that allow, but enough that keeps me busy to reach back out, read through them. I try to do some research on it. So if it continues to grow, then we're gonna have to come up with some better criteria.
Right. Right. And where do you present the scholarship? Do you do it at the state tournament? Do you do it at a regional tournament? Where does that take place?
Yeah, I really do it all. It's all after states. It's kind of later in the year because I try to give as much time as possible for the kids to fill it out.
Okay.
It's just all online. I announce it online,
Okay.
and I'm hoping that it grows and becomes something bigger.
Yeah.
So that's baby steps. First 2 years.
For
This
sure.
will be the third year. So
Now, if somebody wants to get a hold of you to have a clinic, if somebody wants to get a
mhm,
hold of you to submit a nomination, what is the
sure.
website that they can go to?
So you can go to kangaswrestling.com.
Very simple.
That is the website. I do not do well at keeping it updated with apparels, and I post more of my designs than I have on there. But they can go there or kangaswrestling@gmail.com.
Okay.
And yep, it comes right to me. And yeah, I've gotten many requests for clinics. I was supposed to do a couple. I happened to tear my bicep, which postponed a couple.
I was going to ask you,
So
how did you do that?
wrestling.
Yeah.
So what's really been bad is that I did my left arm about a year and a half ago, wrestling. I had a nice Navy ride. Kid kind of hit down. I'm like, I got this. Kind of like curled him back up for a tilt, and it popped.
What do you
This
get?
one,
Just the muscle comes right off the bone?
it just the tendon breaks and the muscle lifts up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen it and it looks nasty.
it's horrible.
Is there
And
pain
then I did
involved with
this,
that?
because it's a tendon. The pain isn't like breaking a bone. If you break a bone, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
But the tendon doesn't really have nerves, so it's not bad. But your muscles and everything else is contracting, and it has enough of a pain, but not like breaking a bone. The healing time is forever though. It's 6 to 7 months
Does it need
for
is it
for
require surgical repair or
yeah. So I had the distal bicep. They'll have to reattach it to the bone. They yeah, and I can go more in depth on how they do it, but they reattach it, and then I had a full cast for like 3 weeks, and then I had this device, and it takes about, like I said, like 6 to 7 months for that tendon to fully harden.
wow.
So it's really hard for me to slow down.
Are
I'm
you
still
out of
working out
commission
though.
now?
I'm sorry.
Are you out of commission as far as clinics and stuff until that fully heals, or can you still do
The one I did over Labor Day weekend, I had a full cast on. If you're able to go back and look at the video, and I'm
it?
showing like how to shoot like a high crotch or
Oh
a
my God.
headlocks. It's you should see that.
You're a
So I
lunatic.
plan on I'm gonna get back out there, and even with this, I gotta be careful because I can't straighten up my arm yet. But I'm gonna get out there and start holding it.
What does Mrs.
So
Kangas think about this?
she's not happy.
I can't imagine she would be.
She What's bad is she was when I did this arm, she was under the weather. It was like Friday night. She was doing okay. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go down to Scorpions. It's Friday Night Live. I'm gonna go just help coach. I wasn't really planning on wrestling. And next thing I know, I'm driving back. One of the parents drove me back. Uh, Mr. Aguilar. If you know James and Nick Aguilar, the
Yeah.
name, their dad drove me back, and I have this water bottle, this frozen water bottle in my arm. And she looked at me.
Did it
It was
again.
all over. I'm like, yep, we're gonna have to go get the MRI. We're gonna go get surgery because
Oh
I
man.
already knew.
Who
So,
what doctor do you use?
Dr. Eddie Eccles, he's in Florida Orthopedics.
Is he like a wrestling
Um,
guy or just a orthopedic surgeon?
just orthopedic.
Okay.
He's a gentleman that did the one arm. Some of the parents know him, said he was really good, so I felt comfortable with him.
Yeah.
And because I was already a patient, I easily got in and took care of this one. So,
Awesome. Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to wrestling and your coaching? Like, are there any things that happen that you're just like, oh my God, I just can't stand that? Like my pet peeve, and it's because I used to be like this, is when I see a parent screaming at their kid. It bothers me. It just bothers me
mhm,
because it's a wrestling match. Come on, man.
yeah.
What are your pet peeves?
What is my pet peeves? That's a good one. Even as a coach, if I have, like, let's say, like, at the local high school, I help out a lot here at Riverview. You have two coaches in the corner, and I'm the third. Believe it or not, I will probably out yell most people. For some reason, people look at me and they're like, "Where did that come from?" I'm very robust.
Yeah.
Not to over yell to other coaches because, and it's even with the other wrestlers coaching. You know, the wrestler on the mat's hearing like 20 different things,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's one thing that I try to be quite aware of myself. Um, my pet peeves, you know, for wrestlers, one biggest thing is like you should always be ready. I don't care if you sit on that mat, you got to be ready at all times. And I really do not like it when they stand there. Next thing you know, they're ankle picked, and I'm like, how are you not? You got to be that mental mindset, right? Um, Another thing I stress in all my clinics is all about positioning. Good technique. There's lots of moves, but being in a good position constantly is what I really stress a lot.
Yeah.
So you don't get too high. Don't, why are you reaching where you shouldn't be reaching? That kind I stress this with everyone in my clinics. You keep your opponent. You have control of your opponent. You apply pressure, and then you hit the move, right? Yeah. So I'm really big on that. Like I want to make sure that you are in good control and applying pressure.
Yeah.
Um,
One of my pet peeves when it comes to the kids wrestling, and you said, always be ready. This bothers me to no end when a kid gets called to a mat 3, 4, 5 times, and they're up in the stands sleeping
yes.
or dicking around with their friends in the lobby or at the snack
How is that
bar.
possible?
Like it happens all the time. It
Mhm.
happens even at the high school level. I'm
Yes.
like, dude, 126 is wrestling. You're wrestling 138. You should be getting a sweat going right now. Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? It
That's
happens.
and well, look back when in our day wrestling, right? How did you know what mat you're going to wrestle on?
Yeah.
You went out to the hallway. There was
Bracket sheet.
the wrestling charts,
Yeah.
and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm wrestling on whatever number."
Right.
You always have to pay attention. Now
Yeah.
it's on the phone, and that sometimes I think it's harder to read, but you should always be ready. I don't know how they're not paying attention and being ready or warming up.
Yeah.
And that's you're hitting on a pretty good subject there. And I'm not going to say this is the entire state of Florida, but I watched a lot of high school matches,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids are sitting down on each side of the mat, very, whatever, relaxed. And I remember the days that, and I'm sure we do it in Florida somewhere, I just haven't seen it. You warmed up outside of in another room.
Mm-hmm.
You ran out to the mat. You did your little warm-ups. You lined up on each side. You shook hands. You got called to the middle of the mat.
Yeah.
I'd really love to see that again. And where you go out to center mat, you shake hands with your opponent, you come back, you're giving your partners, teammates high fives.
Yep.
You got the national anthem, but you always had a wrestling mat or some kind of mat behind the chairs.
Yes.
Where you were warming up.
Yep.
And I don't see it today. So that's something that you hit on that I think we need. But that's also I think that's a good pet peeve is that you need to be warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
Being a wrestler, you're well conditioned. You can't go from 0 to 100 because our body's not, your body's so much more relaxed now as it being conditioned. You need to warm up. You need to get that sweat going. And we see wrestlers go out there all the time, just, oh, I'm up. And there's no warm up involved.
Right.
And if you want to compete against the best, that is a warm up that's definitely needed.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I remember in high school, my coach's name in high school was Randy Miller, and he was an incredible wrestler. He wrestled at Michigan State. He was teammates with Milkovich, and he was also, I think he was really, really good friends with Gene Mills. And I think he was like on a world team in 1980. He was, or like an alternate, but he was very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his big things was you better be dripping sweat when you walk out on the mat. And I do remember in high school, I would go out drenched, like literally, like I just came out of the shower. I'd have to towel off and then go out there. And when I shook the kid's hand, I would feel it was ice cold. And I'm like, oh, I got this kid.
Yeah.
I'm killing him. I mean, it's not even warmed up. So yeah, that's
I think that's a
thing. One of the things
did you
go ahead.
I'm sorry, like another thing that we had to do, this is back in the high school days, that after your match, if you wrestle a full match or a partial match, after a match you put your warm-ups back on and you jump rope for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
We jumped rope, and that was like because you're watching the match the whole time, you're staying in tune, and it was, you just got done wrestling a hard match, and then your jump rope it's makes the other team think a lot too.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
What the heck are these guys doing?
Mm-hmm. What I was going to tell you was, when you mentioned that, you don't see it much down here, but that little mat behind the benches for dual meets, one school that does it all the time, they're so good at it too, is Coach Travis Gray from Wellington High School.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. When they're with their dual meets, you always see a mat, and he always has his kids warming up before the matches.
Yeah.
So we do need to get back to that.
Do the wrestlers like clap and when the next match comes up and see?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
they run out.
I think that makes it more fun.
Circle the mat. They do their whole little routine. It just it's the way it should be. It's the way it needs to be. It should come back. But here's the thing, man. When we were wrestling, it was mostly dual meets, right? Well, we didn't have a lot of tournaments. Now it's like tournaments all the time. Every weekend there's tournaments.
Yeah,
I kind of miss the whole dual meet thing. I think it's more. I don't know what the word is. Intimate, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it probably has a little bit more of a team feeling.
Yeah.
We would. I'm going to say it was Wednesday and Friday was our dual meets, but and sometimes you had tri meet, but it was dual meets Wednesday and Friday. So again, your weight couldn't fluctuate.
Right.
You're not, but we didn't have like a 9-way on the weekend. We had Wednesday and Friday. The JVs wrestled before us, full-fledged JV team.
Yeah.
And both sides of the gym had to be open up for fans. I mean, both sides were always packed with fans. So yeah, I think maybe with, as you're competing, you have the running out, you have the clapping, a lot more involved of the team. It probably was more of an experience also for the fans to see that. I think it was just a bigger type of environment. And again, and I haven't been to a Pennsylvania wrestling match in forever, so they might not be doing the same thing. I have a feeling they are.
Yeah, probably.
Right? It would be fun to do. I mean, just start that routine again.
Yeah.
So
Do you
maybe
remember
I'll
the
get started.
in-school dual meets? Did you guys ever have that where you had a
But
dual meet in school and the whole school came?
I don't think we ever had that in my high
It
school.
was
You got
incredible.
was it crazy?
Oh man, and they still do it. I forgot who did it either last year or the year before down here. One of the schools did it. I want to say Venice, but I could be wrong. One of the
Mm,
schools did it. But how cool is that? And they did it to kind of get more kids to come out for wrestling to see.
right.
It's not what you think it is. This is like good stuff. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, the whole school's there, and these kids feel like rock stars, man. And most kids that don't wrestle don't really understand it that much. So when they see their buddy come out and he shoots a double and he lifts the kid up and they like scream and they think it's like the greatest
Screaming.
thing in the world.
Yeah.
I would love to see more of those. How
Yeah.
long have you been in Florida?
I I moved down to Florida in 94.
Okay, so you've been here
Yeah.
quite
So
some
one
time.
year out of college, I was working at a major financial institution up in Delaware, actually. And I was a full suit, snowing outside, and I had a dustpan, and I'm shoveling my car out. And I said, I'm done. And about 6 months later, I moved to Florida, and one of the wrestlers from high school, from the college, Mark Ambrose, he was a national champion. Um, like, I need a place to stay. So I lived with him until I found my first job down here.
Okay.
Him and his wife let me stay there, and it was worked out perfect. But I got away from that snow within 6 months of graduating.
Yeah, I always
So
ask people, do you miss it? They're like, what is there to miss? No, I don't miss it. How can you miss it?
no, maybe not that part. But it's funny because everyone's like, "You've been down there in '94," and you just start hearing about me in the last couple of years.
Right. I was going to ask you.
I didn't. Yeah, I stayed off the mat for about 26 years. And what was happening is Riverview High School here in Riverview was where my daughters went. It was a winter break. I'm like, hey, and I wrote Coach Hall, and start Coach Hall and talked to Sarah Gable and like, hey, I'm on winter break. Here's my credentials. Can I come out and help? They're like, yep, come on in. I went in there. After practices for a couple of days, a couple of kids um, found out they said that, hey, thanks, Coach Kangas, for coming in and helping. And as soon as he said Kangas, everyone was like, you're so and so's dad? I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but I wasn't allowed to coach until she graduated. My youngest didn't care, but
So,
I was so busy doing, I was raising a family. I had
right.
to work. I was traveling, and so wrestling took a big step back.
Yeah.
And how bad this may sound, COVID helped me out greatly because they realized I can do a lot of my work from remote.
Hmm.
I was still worked all through COVID. I was traveling even through some of it, but because I can work remote, I can now go to practice.
Yep.
I get back home. I can get back at work, and now I'm much more involved. And because I'm not losing a couple hours of driving every day.
Right.
So that's been a huge help for me, and that's why the last couple of years you start hearing more and more of my
Oh, yeah.
activities.
Yep.
So
So now that you're more involved with it, I'm
mhm.
sure you're going to a bunch of tournaments or as many as you can to watch the kids that you've been working with. What are your favorite tournaments in Florida high school wrestling, and why are they your favorite tournaments?
Oof. Well, I love going to state. I mean, that is just
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
and it is so cool to have the girls wrestling at the same time. And I probably got more closer to some of the girls' families, their mom and dads, or so going to see the girls wrestle again and the boys wrestling at the same time is just awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I really don't go to a lot of the high school tournaments that's outside of the Riverview goes to. I think we go to Live Greco. That one's always been cool. Um, I really like going. I do enjoy going to that one quite
Yeah.
a bit. I'm glad I get to go there. Um,
That's for
let's say,
Caucus, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just an amazing story too, and how everybody embraces that
Oh
family,
yeah.
and then it's really cool. So I love going to there, and the competition's great. Um, yeah, I mean, I actually like going to is it the Poseidon? This is summertime. The
Yeah.
Poseidon one they
Yeah.
had at Winter Haven.
Tyrant duels. Yeah.
I think it must have like 24 mats.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
I'm not there to, I don't go to coach. Everybody's on their own teams. Everybody has their coaches. Every now and then a dad or the kids will be like, hey, coach, can you help me out? Because like when they do the IBT, they might not have a coach. Absolutely. And I really enjoyed it this year because I saw kids wearing my singlets. So they had no coach. I saw them out there with my singlets. So I went over and I started coaching, and they won the match. They come off and they look at me and they're like, and they're calculating like, why is this guy yelling at me? So I show him my shirt, and then they realize, oh yeah, I went to his clinic, or
Yeah.
I got his singlet on. But I really enjoy going there that match because I can go and see tons of matches from youth all the way up through high school. I mean, and I'll tell you what, those youth programs are just amazing.
Yeah.
Those kids are so good.
Isn't
So
it
that's one of my
crazy
favorites.
how good these youth are
Yeah.
today? Like, there's youth down here. When I say youth, I mean like 8, 9, 10-year-olds
hmm
that are wrestling at such a high level.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'll go to Scorpions.
That's one of the main
I'm
clubs.
very fortunate. Scorpions is, I don't know, 4 miles away. Mayhem, is 2 miles away. And then I can go. I don't go to Caveman. That's a little farther out. But there's a lot of programs here, youth programs, and it's just awesome to see.
Yeah.
And we had when I was growing up, like talked about the LYA, right? But the youth program, and then we all go to a different junior high,
Yeah.
and now we're rivals. And then we come back, and now we're on the same team in high school, and that was kind of neat. But these youth programs, they're all going to go to different schools probably and
Yeah.
compete against each other, but they're just amazingly good.
Yeah, they really are.
So
And that's how it is over at Phoenix. You got all these top
yeah,
girls,
Phoenix. hmm
and they wrestle at Phoenix together, teammates there. But then they go off to all
Yep.
these different schools and they're wrestling
And,
each other at the state
and then
tournament. It's crazy.
yep, and then they come back together, and it isn't amazing the relationships they have.
Yeah.
They're just best friends, taking little selfies, and they're just having a blast. But when you step on that mat, it's a competition. It's it's you're on the mat.
The girls bring it,
So
man. They bring it. I tell everybody all the time. I have a friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name because he'll get hate mail after I say it. But he's like, "Oh, the girls wrestling. That's garbage. They can't. Girls shouldn't be wrestling." I'm like, what are you talking about? I said,
yeah,
you don't know what you're talking about because if you did, you wouldn't be saying that. I always tell people all the
they're
time. Not only do the girls train as hard, if not harder, but I think they wrestle so damn hard because I think they feel they have something to prove, and they don't, man. Because those girls,
the
they're awesome,
I
man.
I try to explain it because I talk to like people at work about wrestling. They're like, and I tell them the fastest sport growing is the girls wrestling. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah. I said, if you see the guys go out there, they're wrestling. They're kind of like how boxers are. They're kind of feeling each other out. Not everybody's a Bo Bassett,
Right?
and they're feeling each other. And then you get two girls out there, and they're like, and they're like, holy crap!
Yeah,
I mean, they're there's a different level of intensity from the get go, and they are just at it.
yeah.
I think I came out with more bruises when I practiced with the girls than I'm like, Nick, I've got my head's beat up, my shins. I mean, they're tough,
Yeah, no doubt about
and
it. No doubt about it.
so
Have you received any, and you don't have to mention names or any programs, but
mhm.
have you received any pushback from any of the coaches or programs that you're coaching their kids? Because sometimes I do see it where there's certain coaches that have some egos that like you're not getting coached. You get coached by me. Like they don't want
Yeah,
anyone else coaching their kid. Like I think that's dumb.
yeah,
I loved when other people were coaching my sons. Go
hmm
here, go there, get as much as you can, soak it up, and take a little
yep.
something from everybody. Have you experienced that at all since you've been doing it?
I I have not. So
Good.
I do get concerned about that. Like, let's say if I talked about Scorpions, and Scorpions is only a couple miles from
Yeah.
Mayhem. Um, what I talk to the coaches, and I do try to break things up because I don't show the same thing at every clinic. I always have different things I'm trying to do, so I want kids to come for not once and think they've seen it all and won't come again. So I do try to break them out, separate them throughout. Like if I do one in June, I might not do another one that's close by for a couple months later.
Okay.
So they're not. But most of the coaches, and I explain to them, hey, I don't charge. This is just for kids. Everyone really has supported me. Um, And I think what it is it's an opportunity to bring other kids to. They'll know that other kids may come to their practice facility.
Right.
I did one at Sniper MMA. It was so much fun this year. I went there. A lot of the kids that went, there's a couple kids, they never even knew it was there, but they went and followed me to the clinic. And now I see them showing up on like the Saturday and Sunday workouts.
Yeah.
And coach there works them hard. I don't know if you watch his videos, but he works smart. And I think, and that's why I said, use him as a tool. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna give you a break of coaching, and other kids are gonna come in and just build that relationship.
Yeah.
I haven't had pushback. And I am very clear with the kids that this is my technique. Everybody has their own technique. This works for me. And I want to make sure that, hey, your coach might not like this or something like that. So listen to both. Not because I'm showing you, it doesn't mean it's the only way.
Right.
What I do get concerned about kids going to many different coaches, and I think it's good that they go around, is that they have to find that technique that works for them. But I don't want what I get worried about is one of the kids that says, oh, I'm wrestling with my coach. Now I'm wrestling at my high school, so I have to do the technique this way to keep my coach happy.
Mm.
And I think that might be a concern. Like, I cut differently. I do different type of moves that might be really good for the wrestler. But if he's unsure what style to use because he's being coached by his normal coach or by a different coach,
Yeah.
I don't want him to get confused, because that mental block is going to hurt him.
Yeah, for sure.
So getting out there, getting to other coaches is awesome.
Yeah.
And luckily, I've been very welcome to come in. They're asking me to come back and do another camp. Absolutely. I'm going to try to hold a couple-day one here.
Yeah.
Maybe in November. So
one of the things that I think you have going for you is you don't have any loyalty to any high school program. It's not like you're a coach and you're stealing people's kids. You work with everybody.
Right.
You welcome that,
Yeah.
and then you send them back on their way to their school.
Yeah. I do help out that. I am a volunteer at Riverview.
Yeah.
It's like half a mile from here.
Yep.
But Coach Hall, Coach Edwards, and all those guys, they know what I do.
Right.
We don't go looking at Riverview's not stealing anyone.
Right.
They're we have our hammers. We've had some really good, state champions and placers. Did I just lose you on my mic?
No.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So we've had some good kids get to states, place,
Yeah.
win. But we're not stealing anyone. But I actually started with help there. Kitco had something called Iron Will at one time.
Yeah.
He let me help out, and then again, I'm just there to help. And so many of these kids are just, it becomes like one big family.
Yeah.
So.
Isn't Riverview, there's two Riverviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the one that you're at, is that where Keyshawn Clark went?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
did you ever get to work with Keyshawn?
No, he graduated before I got to, I think it was a year or two before.
Like 17
before
or 18,
I went there.
I think he graduated, like 16, 17 or 18. Yeah, he was wrestling at the same time my son Bryce was wrestling.
Yeah, but we did see him in Detroit. We all, we go to national tournaments, and we're in Detroit. So if you ever see the ESPN highlights when he won that semifinal match by, in overtime, and they showed a picture of like North Carolina's stands, we were there all yelling with our hands up. It was just amazing.
Who did he beat? Ironman, right? From Iowa?
From Iowa, yeah. It was just amazing. And then he goes in the finals and gets the first takedown.
I know.
And it was just, wow. I mean, it was really cool to see.
Him in the finals? Penn State, right?
It's Penn State.
Was it Nick
yes,
Lee?
Nick Lee.
Yeah.
And, it's just, when you hear some of the stories about some of the parents talking to Keyshawn and stuff, there's a lot. There's so much respect for those wrestlers, all of them up there from the families. It's such a different sport. I think there's so much respect. I think everyone realizes how hard these kids work.
Yeah,
and admire it.
I tell you, whatever year he won his state title, I forgot it might have been 16 or 17. I forgot, but it was one of those years.
Mm-hmm.
But I really didn't know Keyshawn well. I had seen him a couple of times, and I knew he was tough. But it wasn't until I interviewed him after the state tournament at Silver Spurs. I caught him up in the corridor. I said, "Hey, man, I'm Ricky from Florida Wrestling. Can I get a quick interview?" He had his medal on, and
Yeah.
the sweetest kid you'd ever meet in your life.
Man. Yeah.
Polite, articulate, just a great kid. So I
Hmm.
was asking him. I said, "So, is this something that you've always dreamed of a little kid?" He goes, "I didn't start wrestling until like 10th grade." I'm like, "Come
Right.
on, man. What?
Yeah. Yep.
Unbelievable.
So,
Unbelievable."
and so I didn't know him till after, but I got to meet him. We rolled around a little bit on the mat. I talked to him when he's visiting. Nicest guy,
Right?
right? And the interview after he won that semifinal match, and he interviewed about if he understood the rules and overtime, and he was honest. He's like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just he's just, yeah, like you say, he's just a good kid.
He really is. So,
Yeah.
it was either last year for the Super 32 or the year before. There were some kids that were going to go up early. And I said, "You know what? Let me make a call for you. Keyshawn's at University of North Carolina. Let me see if
Hmm.
maybe, he'll give you a tour around campus." I called him. He goes, "Oh, man, give their parents my number.
Man.
I'm on campus." Not only did he give them a tour, he gave them a workout. Like he brought them
Oh
in.
yeah,
He
I think I've seen
he
that.
worked them out. I'm
Yep.
like, "You got to be kidding me."
You
So
got, yeah,
he just a great kid, man.
yeah, he
I
is.
love seeing that.
Yep.
There was something else I was going to ask you. So being from Pennsylvania, obviously they do things a different way. It's a whole different style of wrestling for the most part. Being in Florida now, do you see kids from Florida where maybe it's like a geographical thing, just stuff we do that is maybe, I wouldn't say wrong, but maybe different, that could be done different, like any specific techniques or things that we do
Hmm.
here that you would change or try to kind of give tips about? Is there anything in particular that we do as a whole differently that you
Yeah,
see?
and and again, I can't say it's just Florida. It could be other
Right.
states, right? Or just different periods. And I really think one thing I see is our top and bottom side wrestling. So um, my mindset, and I'll even tell this at the clinics. No one should be able to hold me down, and oh, by the way, no one should be able to escape from me either.
Yeah.
That was my mindset, and I don't know if we have that going into our top and bottom wrestling. Bottom side wrestling, yeah, we need to escape, but I don't know if we see the explosiveness. But one area I think we struggle with a lot is top side wrestling. I mean, I'm used to seeing this. I mean, I was winning matches in colleges and stuff by riding time.
Yeah.
So if you gotta ride them out.
Yep.
The And I think I see that a lot is I think our top side area. I think we're struggle at. Again, I can't. It's just something I notice. And I was just at a practice the other day, and there's a gentleman that was one of the coaches, and he's out there. And he's wrestling with one of the kids, and I was sitting next to some of the kids. I said, "Look where coach is putting his knee, and he's on top. Notice how it's on the thigh, right? I mean, he's got one knee on the thigh. He's got like a kind of a tight waist. His other leg is pinching him, from the side or up his, giving the guy a little nudge up the butt. I mean, he's tight,
Yeah.
and I'm not seeing that type of riding, and that's something I'm trying to work with a lot of the new kids. Like, it's you're not really high. You're not really you're just tight. You got to use all your body parts. Every part of your body. You don't need to just grab something. You can use your wrists. You can use your
Oh,
elbows
yeah.
to apply pressure or to hold someone down. And I think that's one area where I think we're struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
So you've worked
and
with,
I'm probably going to get bad feedback on that. And so,
that's all right. Take it. Take it. So
yeah.
you work with many, many kids. If I put you on the spot right now and said, who are the top 3 kids that you've worked with, who would you name? As far as
Well,
everything,
again,
talent level to the way they wrestle,
yeah,
who would you say are the guys that you enjoy watching the most because they're just good?
yeah. That's a top 3, right?
Top 3.
So because where I live, I don't know as many people. So being at Riverview, we had a couple good. We had a Nico Hernandez took second.
Yeah.
And I really like watching him. The kid was just tough.
What weight was
I was
Nick?
a tough wrestler. 138.
Yeah.
I think he took second.
Yeah.
And to Haas, I think. Yeah. Um, he was just a really tough kid, heavy hands. Maybe not the best shooter, but he was just a tough kid
Mm-hmm.
that wrestled hard, and I really enjoyed seeing him battle. And then he had a teammate, Nico Romero, who won state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, he won it that year, I think, the same year. Um, totally different wrestler, shooter, fast, just. But both of them practiced together, and you could tell when they're out there wrestling, it was a match to the end. Um, again, I get to see Gianni wrestle live
Yep.
again, and I I don't. I only get to interact with a lot of wrestlers here and there. I wish I had like my own facility again, and I could just like
Right.
what I think how I could groom a wrestler and build a wrestler. No doubt it would be. I could definitely build some really good talent. But I get to meet a lot of people and work with them, and I think Gianni, another very humble, quiet kid, right? But he was just a hard
Yeah.
wrestler. Um, and I am close to the Mustafa
I
family.
love them.
So the Mustafas, I got to know.
One of my
What a
favorite
great family.
families
Yeah, oh,
ever.
man. And Jenna and Sam are just
Yep.
out there and competitors. And the nicest kids.
I
Um,
wish we could have watched her wrestle her senior year, man.
her senior year.
Oh,
You know, I'm assuming she's going to wrestle in
is
college.
she going to?
I think that's just, for some reason, I just feel like
Do they
it's
have
in her.
a women's program at SEU?
I don't
I
know.
don't
That's
think
a good question.
they do.
Yeah. Because I feel like and I feel like there's some unfinished business there
Absolutely.
and I still see her out there on the mat at some of the practices. And that would be an amazing story, right? Because that injury keeps her out of senior year.
Right.
Um, yeah. So that's another great family to just watch them just go. Yeah.
Sam
And they have a little younger sister.
Yeah, Sam,
Hmm?
yeah, she's going to be tough. Sam could be one of the most improved wrestlers in the quickest amount of time that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He's just come so far, man.
He- yeah. He's grown up.
And you got to love the sport, right? Does he love it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I no doubt with everything I watch him doing, he's got to just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I'm fortunate because I'm right here at Scorpions, and these kids are just, we talk about Colton, the little boy,
Oh,
just an animal. His
little
sister, I mean,
redhead Colton.
yeah,
Oh,
um,
beast. Colton Smith.
and
Colton
and
Smith.
Chase, yeah,
And his little
and you
sister,
got Chase
too.
there, yes. So I get to go there and I watch them practice. And again, I haven't been there as much in the past year because of my injury, um, but you see them, and then you go to a tournament, and they're out there and you just gotta watch these kids.
Yeah.
You just sit back and you're amazed at the
It's like
how
you
good
watch a
they are.
little midget college wrestler, you know?
Yeah.
They wrestle at that
Oh yeah.
level. Uh,
But they
Gustafson,
have a
too.
little. They're just crazy intense too. They get so much energy. There's no stop.
Right.
They just go go go. So, but I'm excited to see what we got coming out this year in high school. Though I think we're gonna have some good battles coming
Me
up.
too.
From being at Super 32 last weekend and watch some of those matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun year.
I can't
So
wait, man. It's when I was updating the state rankings the other day, I'm looking at these names. I'm like, ooh, man, that's gonna be good. Ooh, man, that's gonna be. Man, if these two kids meet,
yeah.
we got some good
Yep.
stuff coming up, man. The future for Florida is so bright. Our youth are better than ever because there's so many clubs, and the parents are really dedicated and they're really putting the time into them, which is huge.
Mhm.
So, oh my God, you are officially now the longest episode of Grinding for Greatness, hour and 20 minutes. I love it. And I could talk to you for another hour and 20 minutes. We're going to
I'm
definitely have to
good.
bring
Whatever you need.
yeah, we're going to bring you back for sure because I have so much that I want to talk to you about. So we'll definitely schedule another show. But before I let you go, I want to give you an opportunity right now to just say whatever you want about Will of a Warrior. What can people out there that maybe have businesses or are looking for
Mhm.
tax write-offs or to donate? What can people do to help you out to build this, to give back? Because that's what you do. I mean, it's not going into your
Yeah.
pocket; it goes back into the community. So how can
All of it.
people help you?
Yeah, I love doing clinics. It's something I have to space out. But don't be scared to invite me out there. I do travel a little bit to some of them, but yeah, let me get out there, let me meet the families, let me meet the kids, let me share my experiences and my knowledge, and that's one of the big things I do. I'm like, well, I want to learn every day, and I want to teach everything I've learned. So yeah, invite me out. Donations, shirts. You can always look at helping that out. Again, everything goes back to the scholarship. And I do a lot of other. Every time there's a kid with a fundraiser, like for school or for wrestling, my name's probably going on there somewhere on the Venmos or something. I'm trying to help out all I can, especially there's so many good families and they're trying to travel and get that competition, so I try to help. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't look really for donations as a whole. I look to say, hey, if you think I did a good job in the clinic, you like my apparel, it's a way of saying thanks. And I really do to make some good apparel. I think I sent you a couple.
Okay.
So they're.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. You sent me
like
3 or 4, so
a whole
thank you very much. I wear them a lot.
High schools in Mississippi right now. So.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. So, what
in
do you
this
have,
room,
like presses at the house?
I do a lot of
stuff?
the prints in this little office of mine right here, in my free time. And then I have I've been working really close with overseas on proper fitting, because you never know where you're going to get. So I spend hours on getting the right cuts for singlets, warm up fleece uniforms, you name it. So I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I want to make sure if I'm supplying things to schools, I'm giving them something that's properly fitted.
Yeah. All right. So if there's a team that wants to do just like T-shirts, hit you up, or even
right
full
now,
uniform
like
packages, you'll do that
bottom,
too.
Singlets, back, and shirt. It's fun.
Nice.
Keeps me busy.
What's the turnaround time for a full uniform?
I've got like 16 to 20 kids. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just reach out to you either on Facebook or go right to the website and hit you up.
At Gmail. Perfect way. Yep. But yeah, get me out there and let me work with the kids and share my knowledge, and that's the main thing. And that to me is the most important, because I think we help guide kids by leading in a certain way, and they see you doing certain things or myself doing certain things, and all that does is build the youth to go, hey, let's try following good footsteps. So.
Absolutely. Well, Demetri, again, I thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to let you get back to the family. I'm going to get back to mine. We definitely have to have you come on. So probably in a month or two, I'm going to hit you up, but we'll definitely stay in touch. Let me know what else I can do to help you, and I'll just keep sending people your way. Have a great rest of your night.
Appreciate it. I really appreciate
making a difference
the time you put in, because I read all I don't know how you keep up with the updates, and it's amazing. You do a great job, so thank you, Ricky.
It's hard. Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I do it for the same reason you do, just to give back. Keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble. All right, man. So we'll definitely talk soon. Have a great rest of your night. Hey guys, Ricky Cheese here. Thanks for listening to the show. Remember, you can watch Grinding for Greatness on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the GFG YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and leave a comment on your favorite episode and who you'd like to see next on the show. I'll see y'all soon on the next episode of Grinding for Greatness.